Hey, everybody, welcome back to the next episode. We have a very special guest with us today, Melissa Mills. Welcome, Melissa.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. So a little bit of background on Melissa. She, with a lifetime of plant-based experience under her belt and a natural entrepreneur, she has some serious veg creds, which I can't wait to talk about. In this lively hub of her family's kitchen, she got into the culinary game at an early age. Later, her DIY spirit and curiosity about nutrition and plant medicine combined with her high standards of quality ingredients to create Spread Kitchen. Melissa is in command of the innovation and develops recipes with equal pillars of nutrition and taste, drawing from the world flavors inspired by her extensive travels. She passionately spearheads the company's community and sustainable incentives, and is also a creative magician who shares the vision and communicates the voice of Spread Kitchen. She loves talking about bootstrapping, the whole crazy adventure, which I can't wait to get into, starting with nothing more than a blender, a home kitchen, and $500 in 2014. The Spread'em is on now to is tracking to do 4 million in retail sales across the country and with an eye on US expansion. Well, again, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. That was a mouthful, I know, so sorry about that.
No problem. I love the story, by the way. You know, I don't even know where to start with you because there's so many places we can go. So I'm going to hit on probably 4 different areas with you. The first one is, let's kind of jump into where you're at today. Like, how did this all get started? I love the bootstrapping, you know, the $500, getting going. So how did that all start and how did you get to where you are today then?
Well, like mentioned, I always kind of had this entrepreneurial spirit. So I went to college a couple of different times, but I never really had confidence to kind of work in the field. So I'd always been kind of living paycheck to paycheck and sort of trying to pursue art as a means and music as a means of income. But obviously after a while, that doesn't work so well. So I've always also been really interested in healthy eating. When I was a kid, actually changing the way I ate drastically changed how I saw the world. It improved my health. It improved some problems that I was kind of having. And I just felt so much better once I started changing the way that I ate. So I'd always kind of carried that through my life. And I got to a point when I was around 30 or so where I was like, I need to do something bigger with my life. I'm sick of working these sorts of jobs and I just don't know what to do. So I decided to get a stall at the local farmers market. I started making 3 dips that I always made at home or for friends or parties. I had a $500 limit on my credit card. That's all the money I used to get going in this farmers market. And yeah, I just sort of started making these dips in the idea that I hoped at the end of summer I would have some amount of savings that I would be able to use to go on a trip somewhere cheap like South America to sort of ponder my existence, and hopefully I would get that sort of lightning strike moment that we often all think about. And no matter where you are, sometimes you could be a lawyer and hope to get a lightning strike moment, where
Right.
you're like, yes, I feel fulfilled. This is the direction my life should go in. I feel useful. I'm doing something, that makes me excited. And then after my first farmer's market, I sold out completely in only a couple of hours. I made about $1,000, and I was so overwhelmed by all of the people's comments. They were like, wow, like I've never tasted anything like this, and the colors are amazing and the flavors are delicious and it's clean ingredients, and I have all these digestive problems, or I'm gluten-free, I'm dairy-free, and everything tastes awful, and here you have this thing. And I was like, wow, I felt validated and I felt joy and like, wow, something I'm already naturally good at, so I don't have to go back to school, that I'd always never even thought about, turning into a business or anything like that. And I like the people. I'll just do farmers markets forever is kind of what I thought. But people got really serious about my dips. They were calling me, wanting to meet me in parking lots at Starbucks, wanting 20, 30 of these things. They wanted to put them in their freezers. They wanted to give them to their friends. They were so worried they wouldn't see me again. And I was like, well, wow, like this is kind of crazy, I kind of felt like
you became the back alley dip dealer.
Yeah, I felt like a celebrity. I definitely felt kind of like a dealer, I was like, wow, this stuff is addictive.
Right.
And it kind of just organically grew through word of mouth, um, and into stores naturally without me actually setting an intention or a plan to do so. I kind of just followed what people suggested to me because, of course, I had no experience in food manufacturing. I didn't even own a car. I was renting a room in a house somewhere. I didn't have any experience in branding or CPG. I mean, I did go back to school to learn how to make websites and kind of use Photoshop and Illustrator. So that
Right.
did really help with some of the packaging that we ended up using. But yeah, it just sort of unfolded naturally, which was pretty cool.
That's a pretty cool story. So, like, what were the dips at the very start? The first three dips, was it for like crackers, or was it for vegetables, or was it for what type of dips was it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it could have been for crackers or vegetables. It was like they were all cashew based and they still are to this day. So it was a
Yeah.
beet cashew balsamic dip. You could put veggies in it on a sandwich. They're all very versatile. So I think that's also why they were so popular. There was a pesto style one that was made with cilantro. And there was an onion dip that we no longer make because basically you take 50 pounds of onions, which took me all day to peel and cook them for 10 hours to get like 10 dips. And I stunk like onions for days. And I was just like, this isn't scalable. That was my first lesson in like scalability of like turning something you like making at home in small
Right.
batches into an actual business. And you're like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. Plus, I couldn't, no one wanted to make it either. And eventually, when we got into a commissary kitchen, everyone in the kitchen's like, oh, Mel, please stop making that onion dip. And
That's
everyone
funny.
loved it. It was delicious because it was basically just caramelized onions, so onions cooked down to nothing, so delicious and sweet. But everyone was like, please stop doing it. And I was like, you know what, that's smart. So then we made a carrot dip, and then we started making these cultured cheeses with cashew nut and just getting really crazy in the kitchen.
That's cool. So were you at that time, were you vegan at that time?
Actually, no. So I was a vegetarian. I turned a vegetarian when I was 13 and basically started eating vegan in my after high school ish,
Right.
occasionally eat cheese or anything, but vegan wasn't even a thing that people talked or really knew about
Yeah.
back then when I sort of started eating this way. I did eventually have to end up start going back to eating meat when I was around the same time I started this dip company actually.
Right.
But it was all, I still am a kind of a plant forward person who like makes everything from scratch.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, I've been I mean, since for just about 21 years, just about full vegetarian.
Hmm.
So, so a little bit dips in there. Like earlier, there just was nothing around 20 years
Oh,
ago. Like now, I joke now, like with everybody on my show that has all these
mhm.
different vegan companies and stuff. I'm like, yeah, let alone try to find clothes, let alone try and find even food back then, right? Like a veggie burger tasted like cardboard.
Yeah, or it had actually had beans and rice in it. Yeah, when I first became a vegetarian, all we had was an IGA in my town. They did actually have tofu, which was weird. But other than that, that was it. Like I had to figure, and that's how I became this sort of culinary magician in a way because my mom was like, I'm not going to cook something different for you, or I mostly did a lot of the cooking in the household anyway. Um, and I was always liked experimenting. And there was a cooking show. We didn't have cable, but there was this one show. It was called The Urban Peasant that was actually filmed here in Vancouver. And a weird story is that when I first moved to Vancouver, I found a place on Craigslist, and the lady who I ended up living with, her dad's best friend was James Barber, who was the guy who had this cooking show, which totally like inspired my life
Right.
when I was a kid, which I was like, whoa, this is like one of those synergetic moments where like, you're on the right path
Right.
kind of thing. But like, yeah, there was no vegetarian pre-made food anywhere, vegan pre-made food at all.
Yeah, no, not at all. So so then you're there, you're kind of like, okay, I got something here. Then did you decide to be like, okay, I'm want to get serious now. Like let's turn this into a real business, because obviously you were looking at the fact of with the onion dip, and you decided you probably maybe didn't even know what scalability meant at that time, but you had to figure it out. You're like, okay, if I'm going to keep doing this, this ain't going to work. Right. So what all of a sudden, what was the next steps?
Well, I mean, I guess it kind of happened slow and fast at the same time. So I knew I had to get a commissary kitchen. I loved sharing my dips. So I just went around to all these different stores, dropping off these cute little packages of samples and stuff like that, and being like, hey, what do I have to do to get into your store? Do these things. And I quickly, I bought a car, a little used Ford Focus wagon or something like that. And
Right.
I just started like I took a couple of like small business courses, like short courses
Yeah.
online, and went to some seminars. And I am a very curious person by nature, so it was actually, I looked at it as if it was like this hero's journey. I'm like, okay, I have this thing, I'm trying to get it here, what do I have to do to make that happen? So I'd knock on doors, I'd kind of like ask people questions and create a plan. So I wrote a little business plan. I got a small loan from a futurepreneur, which is, I highly recommend people who are looking for, small business support, like maybe they need to buy a piece of equipment or something. They help you write a business plan, they give you money.
Right.
And I kind of scaled up the blender, which was the first thing, because I was doing it from a Vitamix before, which was like 2 dips at a time. So when you're doing 10,000 dips a week, it's kind of hard to do them 2 at a time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I just sort of started scaling it piece by piece, and eventually got some outside sales help and got distributors. And I still actually did, because coming from a place of no experience, um, I did a lot with a little, for like maybe too long, I guess, in a way, because I was like afraid of like taking a big risk, like getting a big lease on a big food
Right.
manufacturing plant. Because the beauty of how I scaled my business was I didn't need to get anything other than a few small equipment loans that were easy to pay back,
Right.
to help scale the business. It was all done with the money, the investments, basically, of people buying the products. And so I felt like a high level of responsibility to make sure that, this business was profitable, and that I was doing the best, that I was being responsible with how I scaled it.
Right. That's awesome. So was there a time where, because it sounds like you went in stages, meaning where you're just that kind of small, and if you're just kind of selling like this, you're actually making a little bit of money because you're like, oh, I'm just, you know what I mean? I'm just selling. But then when you start to go to that next stage, was there a part where you got and you were like, were you always profitable, or did you start to burn some money to have to get to the next stage?
No, I was always profitable, because I always, and this might be a tip if you're the type of person who wants to start a business, is that I always looked at, my company was separate from Melissa Mills. So I always paid myself a little bit, like enough to do my rent and have some food, but I didn't go out and like buy myself new clothes or spend all that money that Spread'em was making on myself, because I definitely respected the opportunity that I felt like I was given with Spread'em Kitchen, coming from my background. And I worshiped Spread'em. I was like, whatever I need to do, to almost like a child, right? I sacrificed so many things for myself in order for this business to thrive. And I think in doing that, and because it was such a unique product, and I was doing demos, and basically anyone who tries it, they love it. Like, I haven't really met anyone who doesn't like it. We have a lot of like, hardcore fans of the product. And so I think I somehow was lucky enough that all the money I made, I could put back into Spread'em and use that money to scale. And haven't needed any like outside financing or anything like that. And granted, we didn't do any marketing. So this is where we are kind of today, where it's like, okay, now we have to think about, I would think that now we would maybe burn some money to invest in big, larger scale marketing
Right.
initiatives.
Right.
I think maybe that's one thing we did differently. Everything was word of mouth in the beginning.
Right. So let's say, so you went from that stage, you went to, now you've gone to a good level where things are rolling. You probably get to do more CEO activities, as much as not as putting up
Mhm.
stuff in the blender anymore. So, so you've got to move into a bit of a different role. Where do you find now? Because the business is different than when you used to put stuff into the blender. So,
Mhm.
which takes
Mhm.
completely different skill sets, which takes a different type of person now So for you to now move into the kind of next stage of business, what has been some of the biggest challenges now for you?
Well, I mean, I learned that I am a really good technician and I really like being a technician is one thing I learned. Like I'm a good worker. I've always been a really hard worker. Everything I give is, in the that. I am also very cerebral and sort of a thinker and a dreamer, visionary, but when the going gets tough, I often find myself wanting to be like, I just want to go back and make dips. Like just put
Right.
me in the mixing room. So it was an adjustment, I will say. Um, I did come across some learnings or a way of looking at life that I found very interesting and I also found very helpful, which was this idea about habits and behaviors create personality and create who you are. So if you want to change who you are, or if you have to become someone else, you have to look at your day-to-day activities and you actually have to mindfully, consciously have a picture in yourself of what it is you need to become and then consciously create those actions in order to become this new version of yourself. It's almost like the phoenix, the death, the rise and the fall of the phoenix constantly throughout the 8 years that I have been in business. And I would say that reading books is also is very helpful in that transition. Not just books about like strategy and marketing, but real books on personal development, like who are you and
Yeah.
who do you want to be and how do you almost manifest, I don't know the proper word, but like create this vision of yourself. And so that's where am today. I recently signed up for a few kind of like leadership mentorship things and like how to become an actual leader.
Right.
And I just do a lot of work on habits and
Right.
seeing people. Like I'm also spent a long time being shy. I recently just kind of got over that. And I had a lot of mentors that they didn't know me, but I would watch them from afar, or you watch videos, you watch TED Talks, you watch these things and you see these people and you're like, oh, I want to be like this person, and oh, I like the characteristics of that person. And I'd even do it for businesses. How I created the pillars and the values missions of my business was by looking at Apple, looking at some local businesses. There's
Right.
one here called Hippie Snacks, and how do they treat their employees and how do they give back? What sustainability practices do they follow? And I kind of like collaged it all together to come up with my version of the perfect company or the perfect community
Right.
building or version of myself.
I love that. I mean, that's awesome. I so believe in that. And I don't believe in that. I think what you just talked about is the fundamental of growing a good business and, and growing a business that people respect and it does well and, treats people good and you grow and stuff. I've always believed one of the things that we've done in our business and that I've learned to do, and I've worked so hard to do this, is build more like a people before profit business model. And it has not been easy. But I can tell you the payoffs that's happening now are far and like it's untouchable. And I think sometimes it's people, business owners shy away from building like that because there's so much work behind the scenes that people don't see. It's easy to see all of us on social media and do this great post and our companies look successful, but it's like you said, all the the little details that you're working on to perfect this company behind the scenes. There's a heck of a lot of work. And I remember one of my mentors, I sat on his board for a long time and he's worth about 200 million. He's giving all his money away. And he said to me, you know, just keep becoming a better operator of that business. And he said, the better you operate that business, and that's from like, from our kind of people before profit type of business model. When you master that, everything will just happen. Everything will just happen. So I never, I took that teachings a lot. And then when I brought the curves for women franchises to Canada, I kind of look back now and I realized, oh, that was such teachings for me too, because I learned processes and systems and all the stuff behind the scenes that like
Mhm.
made it more efficient and more productive and stuff like that. But it's what we're talking about right now is probably the hardest thing to do for small business owners, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. I think also like depends on where you're coming from in your business too. Like I wasn't looking to build a business so I could go somewhere else and sit on a beach somewhere, or, I was looking to build something that would give me the ability to have impact or to feel fulfilled through service in some
Right.
way. I didn't have that exact language at the time. I just knew there was a feeling that I wanted to be coming from my heart or from myself, that I knew that having the ability to do something good would provide me with that. So it was selfish in some way, but I think that when you create a business from that place, you're willing to roll up your sleeves and figure out the processes. And like one of the big things I always do is I always try to do the processes first, so that I have a good understanding, so then I can actually help manage and direct or mentor
Yeah.
the people that are in that role beneath me. Because for me, my personal journey on the business end is about personal growth, is about developing myself. So for some people, yeah, they just hire in these places, they hire in people who are, maybe like, the best in class in that space, and they just kind of give it away to them. But I felt like for me, part of my personal journey was to participate in every level of building this business
Right.
until where I am today.
I think that's a good tip. And I believe in that, by the way. The reason I believe in that are for multiple reasons. One is that, especially in a small business, right? If you're not over 50 employees, you still have control of everything. There's no reason that you shouldn't have a handle on everything. 50 is not that many. And so at that point, because of what you just said, you're able to learn every part of the business. So you can make better decisions, you can help more people, and you also save more money because you make better decisions. You know the process, right?
Hmm.
Somebody can't take advantage of you as easy, the negotiation, so many things, like so many things. But yeah, I think it's critical that business owners do that. And I think sometimes that's why you see when people get a large investment of money, that sometimes it doesn't make it because they don't understand the business enough. It's easy to blow through that money, put somebody here, put somebody there. Now your burn rate's faster, your burn rate's here. All of a sudden you're like, oh, what the heck's going on here, right?
Hmm.
So
100% agree with that. Yeah.
yeah, and not, there's some businesses where you just need lots and lots of capital. If you're going to start an app and compete against Instagram or TikTok, you're probably going to need some money, right? You're going to need some
Hmm.
stuff behind you, right? But there's other
Hmm.
ones, a lot of businesses can be growing, like you said, very grassroots and understanding that business more. And I actually find that if you're trying to raise money, if you know every in and out of that business and you sit down with investors, it is really easy to get money because they believe in you. They know this guy and girl knows every part of their business.
Hmm. No,
So
100%. I have lots of people often trying to give me money, from banks, which is an honor, because they're
yeah,
not too easy with giving away the money, and
right.
also investors. And I take that as a compliment to the care and attention that I've spent on my business. Now, granted, it's taken me 8 years now to kind of get to where I am. And for people who are looking to expedite that process, yes, you need a lot more money, right? Because you're looking to grow faster. Everything is going to cost more, and you have to do more, and so I mean, it just depends on the road.
It's true. But you better back up because if they're going to get that more money of what you just said, they better darn well understand how to develop those skill sets to run that business proper before they get that money, or that money is not going to last very long.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point, right? And it's not easy to change as a human being. I mean, we kind of talked a little bit about behaviors and other things. It's changing behavior, becoming a new version of yourself is so difficult. People only usually can do it in crisis, generally. And so to be trying to actively perfect that skill without crisis it can take a while, depending on what it is, how different it is from your current behaviors, right? So it's all about time. Some things you just can't rush, just like our product. I think part of the reason why it tastes so good is because it takes time to make it,
Right.
the people love it because of certain nuances that you just can't get through putting, crap together that just doesn't have anything to it. You need these particular processes in order to get this product, and I think it's also a reflection of kind of my development in the business as well.
So you've got, what do you have? 7, 8 people on your team, 10 people, 12 around there?
Oh, we're up to 14
14?
people now, split most of them are in production, and then a few people are kind of helping with marketing, sales, and those sorts of things.
Right. So what do you think is one of the most important things of bringing on the right people? Because I mean, I'm a firm believer that, and I think everybody should be, that to grow a good business, of course, you need people, right?
No, yeah,
People,
definitely.
right? And I've always said, if you master if you have a decent product or service, and you master, I mean master, right? I'll say it again, master the people part,
Mm-hmm.
you will scale it. There is no way. It was impossible not to make it work. Impossible. So what do you think, now that you've got more people you're dealing with, what is some of the most important things of trying to find the right people?
100% attitude, positive attitude, a can-do positive attitude. Anybody who has a positive attitude and, basic aptitude, I think those people can become anything. That you can train them to do absolutely any part of the business, from a manufacturing standpoint, at least. Positive attitude is probably the hardest thing to find. Consistent positive attitude is probably the hardest thing to find, I personally think. And then cultivating, nurturing them is so important. Validating their worth regularly, celebrating them regularly, having a connection with them that is not necessarily like beyond like professionalism, but like these people are trading, I don't even want to say these people that are in your circle are trading their time, their life to help you, bring your vision to
Yeah.
life, and that's amazing. That's insane. Like, thank you so much for doing that. You know what I mean? Like, you can't really, if you don't have gratitude towards that, you're going to turn through people pretty quick. And I think the more attention that you put on, that kind of culture, the longer people will stay, the more they'll want to try new things, the more they'll enjoy coming to work, which will sort of trickle down into every single part of the business.
Yeah, what you said is, I mean, to me, what you just said, that is business, right? You have a decent product or service, that is business. So it's every day when I get up, I always say to myself, how can I make everybody around me working with me lives better today? And then I try and figure it out. And I try and figure it out, and I try and figure out, even a couple new hires we got coming on, I like figured out right away how I can make their lives better. I went through different stuff with them, and I'm like, okay. And the one guy was he's so excited. He's like, I'm so excited to come work with you. Like, so excited. I've never been this excited. And I know I can make his life better. I know I can make certain of his dreams come true. I know I can, and I know how to tie it to our purpose and our company and all that stuff and stuff like that. But so, it's such a rewarding thing too. Don't you think? Like, when you're able to think like that, like, that's a different mindset, what you're talking about. Like, that's coming from like almost like a people before profit business model. That's a different mindset. That goes to another question. And it's something that we talked about before that you have a deep level of just naturally from your upbringing that you told me about. What do you think is the importance of compassion in business?
I mean, I think it's also a new way of business. I think capitalism kind of has this, or business has this name for itself, which is like, you know, by whatever means necessary, whatever you have to hurt the environment, the people, you know, low wages, this and that. I think the way that we do business is sort of this new kind of B Corp, people before profit, triple bottom line thing where just personally, I can't sleep at night knowing that I hurt someone in order to make my life better. So with what I have available to me now, you know, I can't always make the best decisions when it comes to, say, we use plastic because it has a good high oxygen barrier. It keeps the product fresh for a lot longer.
Right.
And, you know, there's just certain things that we kind of have to use plastic.
Yeah.
And I would like to not use plastic or try to find another solution, but we're not at that size of business where we could really contract it, you know, maybe a hemp company to try to prototype something for us. But
Yeah.
like, that's kind of on my mission or my vision for future as we grow, or these sorts of things. So like, I sometimes feel like I have to make decisions that don't identify 100% with where we are today, but you know, knowing the person I am, I trust that I'll be able to make these things happen in the future. But for sure, it's like making sure we source our products from ethical people, you know, like that the farms that the cashews are coming from are not, you know, slave labor, or these sorts of things, or making sure that our employees are, you know, have a great environment, that they get lunches, or, you know, that we have relationships with them, and
Yeah.
make sure that we're doing business with other like-minded businesses in terms of other retailers and other sectors that sort of support that. I think there's a big spot for compassion in business. And I think almost today businesses have to lead the way for bringing back that level of efficacy to humanity in a way. I feel like we're so distant and we've been sort of kind of separated, especially over the last couple of years. And it's all me, and
Yeah.
mine. And we actually are more depressed than ever. We're more disconnected than ever. We are striving for more than ever, but we're not happier. And so what is the measurement of our lives, right? Like, isn't it happiness, fulfillment? So I think in businesses taking the step to actually take less profit, but like, I wouldn't even say take less profit, because it's profit in the form of not money. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's still equity. It's just in different measurements. It's not
Yeah.
all in sort of money. You know what I mean? And so I think
Yeah.
by teaching that and practicing that and trying to bring people together more is sort of like the responsibility of businesses of the future.
Yeah. I so agree with you. I actually believe too that that's the competitive advantage for small businesses. And if they run it right, they operate it right, they build it right, that that will be 100% their competitive advantage in the marketplace. And that will put them number one, number two, number three. And that'll give them the chance also to be able to compete against the big boys that have the big marketing dollars. Because let's face it, we can't compete with people that are spending 100 grand a month on marketing. Right? You know what I mean?
Or more
Right?
sometimes,
Yeah,
$1 million
yeah,
a month
a
on
million a
marketing. It's
month on marketing.
insane.
Exactly, right? You
Yeah.
know, yeah, totally, right? So that just ain't gonna happen. But we can win on what you're talking about. Uh, and that's where the consumer is saying that they want to go to nowadays, which is even more exciting for me because, you know, 20 years ago, we might try to build these business models, but the consumer, you know, might not have been there as much, right? Said, yeah, I don't care if you're treating people good. I just want a cheaper price. Right. You know, so let's face it, it's changed a lot, right? Since 20 years ago.
Yeah, definitely. It was only like commodity based consumer transactions, like lowest price wins, you know. But now you're getting into values and sort of mirroring self-actualization of people is sort of at an all-time high, and sort of this idea of valuing their time is at an all-time high, and these sorts of ideas of, you know, being happy, maybe doing less so you can be happy, and that's okay. Mental health, of course, is huge, and I think it all ties into the same sort of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, what a concept, hey? Being a CEO and thinking if are your people happy? right?
Yeah.
So, what do you think? Last question. What do you think is some of the most important traits an entrepreneur needs to succeed?
Compassion,
Mhm.
I think, for
Yeah,
sure, being
yeah,
sort of authentic and ethical, and just sort of having a empathetic side to themselves. And I bet yes, lots of business people would be like, no, that's probably the last on the list. But for me, that's something that's high up there because I am a values-based business. I want to do good.
right,
The ability to take risks. So being able to trust in your vision and the ability of that vision to present itself even when it's looking like it's not going to work, but just maintaining that trust, so that risk, and putting it all and being all in all the time, being is probably a pretty important, depending on what kind, how big you want to grow your business, of course, and sort of what you want to do with it. um, and resilience, and with that sort of problem solving, so being able to, when things pop up that weren't planned or scheduled, or problems arise, that you don't spiral and think that this isn't working, or it's not meant to be, or it's all over. Being able to just quickly recalculate, okay, well, what is on the table, what can I do, what can I control, what I can't control, being rational about those sorts of things, and quickly making a plan, and following through with that new calculation, I think is some business advice from listening to lots of Warren Buffett and sort of like, type business tycoon types, is decisiveness is probably their number one skill, being able to be decisive, make you
right.
successful.
I, I love that advice. Actually, one other question. You could go back, what's one thing that you would have done differently?
I think I would have believed in myself more. I
Mhm.
did teeter for several years, maybe four, like quite a few
Really?
years,
Wow.
on like, am I the right person to fulfill this vision? Am I going to be able to become the person I need to become in order to fulfill this? Is this right for me? Am I good enough to do
Right.
it? I think I did sort of struggle with that. And I think that kind of slowed a little bit of our progress, which also helped in some ways too. But believing in myself, like really knowing that whatever I want to happen, it can happen. I just have to do the work.
Right. And I'm glad you shared that, and you were vulnerable on that, which is actually one of the highest traits of a very skilled leader, CEO, by the way, is vulnerability. So thank you for sharing that. And some of the I forget which CEO it was, but he ran one of the largest banks, and he had a salary of crazy, crazy money. And he said, I would still look in the mirror at times and say to myself, am I really the right person for this job? And he was already there. He was already at that level, right? So
Mhm.
I think it enters everybody, at times. It's just a part of who we are. But you keep learning and you keep growing, you'll
Mhm.
always be the right person to keep executing.
Mhm. Yeah.
Awesome. So where can they all find you at? Where can they get your products at? Any social medias, websites, all that type of stuff?
Yeah. So for social media, our Instagram handle is at Spread'em Kitchen, just all one word. Facebook is Spread'em_kitchen. And then TikTok is also at Spread'em Kitchen. I run my own TikTok. It's pretty fun. I think the videos are really funny, so I recommend checking them out. And store wise, we're basically in almost every single grocery store here on the West Coast. Like Choices, Nature's Fair, Whole Foods, of course, and also in Loblaw Superstore and Sobeys. So yeah, just check out the store locator on the website, which is spreademkitchen.com, and you can get some.
Cool. Well, I'm excited to go get some of your stuff. Maybe I'll do a test tasting on my IG with them when I get them.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Totally, totally. Yeah, I just started jumping on TikTok too. now too, and so I'm having some fun doing that. So I'll come find you over there.
Okay, yeah, do it. I only have like 10 followers, so I need help. I just started it the other day though, so
Yeah, I'm pretty new at it too, just kind of getting going on it. But I'm glad you're over there. It's a platform to be on right now and to keep growing. You know, it's going to be a big part of all our businesses over the next 5 to 10 years.
yeah, and I really like it. It's actually, I didn't like it at first, and that's why I was so reluctant to go on it because a lot of the TikToks that were on my algorithm or when you first start looking at were like, I don't identify with
Yeah,
this stuff
yeah,
at all. Like this is like not my thing. But then I eventually started finding it because I'm more of like educational type of social media person and finding some things like that. And I was like, and I'm also very creative, and I just started being creative with it. And then once you start doing that, then it is really fun. I can
yeah.
see why people post all the time and sort of that way. So I
Yeah, I
like it.
like what you said there, and I think that's a good tip to everybody watching right now too. Don't be scared, when you get on the social platforms, because it's a form of marketing we all got to do now. Don't be scared to just try different stuff, because you just never know what is going to work on the platforms. There's things that I've done that I was like, oh, this one's going to be great. And I'm like, shush, no one even watched it. And then other one I done, and I'm like, it completely went viral. And I was like,
Yeah.
never thought that thing would ever do anything. So,
Yeah, that's the biggest feedback that people give from TikTok universe is just kind of like just keep posting because honestly you can't you'll never know which one is going to be the one you spend the least amount of time on.
yeah, it's true, because just the other day I did a one where I was just put some fun captions and edits on it when I was working on the gym, and did some cool editing on it. Just I was actually just having some fun with it, and it got a lot more views than some of my other ones. So I was like, okay, that one worked, and it's a big part of my life. I work out every morning at 6 a.m. And it
Mhm,
inspires people, right? So
mhm,
so I was like, oh, I guess I'll do some more of these. I like it anyways too, right? So
mhm, mhm.
awesome. Oh, well, this has been such a great interview. So thank you, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good. Thanks so much for having me. Bye.
Bye.